In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert are here hosting a fantastic speaker and a real good writer. And just
Real good.
I think how many episodes of that we were talking about just kind of slurring stuff to make it easier.
This is the one.
This is where it's coming out. Miss Ora Nadrich.
Yes.
And I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Ora is such a beautiful person. Mm-hmm. That's really what I think. If I was going to summarize Ora, I would say beautiful.
Yeah.
Because she really is just so insightful and so lovely. And, you know, when you listen to her speak, you can tell it's coming from a real place of insight and compassion and thoughtfulness. Mm-hmm. And I think that it really helps you to hear the truth and the authenticity, as we'll talk about in great detail in this podcast. It helps you to feel that in her words. And I don't think that every thoughtful or every mindfulness teacher, every meditation teacher, every person that's in this kind of self-help world always has that ability. And I think that's a real unique gift of Ora's, to be able to help people to really hear the underlying message of what it is that she's trying to get across.
Yeah. Yeah, she's really a good communicator.
Yes.
You know, and I think, and it'll come across in the podcast, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But as we'll talk about towards the end, you know, she has book signings and stuff coming up. And I think if there's, you know, if you have the ability to go and meet her or listen to her speak in person, I think there's another level that comes with that. Like, you know, as with most people, right?
Yeah.
But I think especially with Ora, she you know, she has a way about her that I think makes it, you know, easier to understand what she's throwing down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had Ora on our podcast before, and we talked about her last book, Says Who, how one simple question can change the way you think forever. And today we are diving into Live True, her new book, A Mindfulness Guide to Authenticity. And I've just finished reading the book over the last few days, and I just love it. And it's laid out in such a wonderful way. And, you know, just with Ora's own unique expression and thoughtfulness around it. And she also has an album of meditations out that accompany it, which is really cool. So it's kind of like a double whammy, hit you from all angles kind of thing.
The eyes and the ears.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're really excited. And before we get to that, one of the things that we talk about, and it was very cool because the first time we met Ora and had her on the podcast, she was getting ready to go down to Rythmia. So of course we all have that experience in common, having shared that beautiful sacred work together, and not actually physically together, but having done it at Rythmia. Right. And, you know, just a reminder to folks out there who are considering that's going to be coming up before you know it. And if you're considering joining us at Rythmia at the end of the year, there's no time like the present to get in and reserve your room, reserve your space, and also consider doing Authentic Self to help you get prepared for that journey. And we'll be offering a specific Authentic Self course for that Rythmia experience. So you'll have 6 months of coaching going into your journey, your plant medicine journey, and then 3 months after to integrate that experience. And, you know, talking with Ora today just helped bubble up that passion and kind of reconfirm why we really want to take groups there and why it's so important to us to make that accessible and to work in the path of the medicine. So it was cool to share that with her and talk a little bit about that. And we know you guys are going to get a ton out of this podcast. So without further ado, here is Ora Nadrich.
And we're live. Welcome back to the podcast, Ora.
Hi, Adam and Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you back in our space.
I know, and I'm loving being in your space.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we, of course, the last few times on our podcast, we just got these animal spirit cards and have been starting the podcast by having our guest draw one. And I'm so excited for you to draw one because I not only want to hear what your spirit animal is, but my first question will be, what do you think about spirit animals and guides, and what's sort of your philosophy around that? So if you want to maybe share your card.
Yes, I
and
do.
then some of your philosophy, we can just dive right in.
Absolutely. I love my card. I think all the cards are beautiful. I think all the animal spirit guides are so there for us to really mirror back to us what we need to see and or be guided towards. So to me, the swan is perfect to begin our conversation, the animal of transformation, a word I like to refer to a lot in my work. So beautiful reminder, and I love it.
Awesome. And I love that I handed you these cards and you said, oh, I have these cards.
I do. And you actually got me thinking, oh, you know what? I should pull from these more.
Yeah, they're beautiful cards.
Animal spirit, I go into that realm a lot when I'm in the bathtub. I don't know why, but it comes to me a lot in visualization, maybe just being in water and sort of free falling in that body of water. And I find that I really conjure up spirit animals when I want to have an answer for something. Do you know? So I'll call upon that energy. And as I just shared with you, I'm surrounded by birds
Right.
at my home. And I was just talking recently about being in the present moment awareness. And I know we're going to take a deep dive into my book, but that I love when I am lying on my bed and this big window, a few big windows in my bedroom, and the slow moving motion of a bird going across the sky always gets my attention.
Huh.
Do you know? And that's something that I talk about in the book. It's called life gazing.
Yes, I remember. Yeah. Yeah, I have been reading through the book in the last week, and it's just lovely.
Thank
and
you.
It's Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. And before we started, we were talking about how we're all craving more authenticity, that's really something that it seems like the collective consciousness has just sort of dropped a pin on and said, okay, it's time to really step into our authentic nature. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's this sense of awakening towards discovering what's more authentic to ourselves?
I think there's always the synchronicity of the times that we're in and what we see in the macro micro, that a lot of what we witness outside of ourselves is really an indication, whatever it is, whether it is perceived as light or dark energy, oftentimes it's really showing us what we need to look at more closely. So authenticity at a time when there's so much illusion, if you will. I mean, I bring this up in that we can specifically say something like fake news, just the
Right.
word fake. I mean, just to be with that,
Yeah.
you know, the idea of that we are being fed information and we don't even know if it's real or not. So to me, that's a real indication that the whole idea of what is real versus what is not, what is authentic versus what is fake or illusionary, is to me what we're really seeing manifested outside of ourselves right now.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because it's pretty far reaching. You know, I mean, the political environment's an easy place to, I think, identify some of that. But even, I mean, and I guess it's probably been happening for the last couple of years or so, but you see these even magazine articles showing, well, this is what the person looked like before they were retouched, and this is what they look like afterwards. So there's just so much of that. And obviously the Instagram culture and all of this is so much disparity, I think, between like what's being presented and what might actually be real. And we just keep calling attention to that for people where they're like, well, wait a minute, if this is BS, then what is this? And where does this thing show up? You know, so it really
Right.
makes sense that
Exactly.
you know, we just crave something that's real.
That's
like,
right.
just show me whatever it is that's real. You know?
Right. And, you know, we are so bombarded. We have so much social media just assaulting us daily. Some of it we're on willingly and wantingly. And then some of it is just, you know, just taking over. So we see so much that's really showing us things that we might think we have to participate in or adhere to or believe is true. And I look at that as that it's just overkill. We're being constantly inundated. And the image that comes up for me, it's like, you wouldn't want to eat chocolate cake all day. You'd have a point where you just go, enough. You know, I can't take one more bite of this. So I think that we're, getting a sense of something is out of whack here. Something's out of balance and we're picking it up. And I think it's our natural stasis to want to go towards the wholeness, to want to go towards the light, to want to go towards the healing, especially when we know the planet is in such a dire need of that right now. So it's interesting. You said the collective, that each and every one of us, we are all connected.
Right.
I do subscribe to oneness and unity consciousness, and that we're more similar than we are different. And so we can have this conversation. And even though we don't talk all the time, we are on that same wavelength about it. You said authenticity. Why is that striking a chord in so many people?
Right.
Do you know?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Something that I've been sort of confronted with lately, though, is this interesting spin on authenticity, which is almost an oversharing. It's like a new thing where everyone wants to like prove they're being authentic, right? So they overshare something, or it's a really interesting sort of filter on authenticity. And I'm curious if you've noticed that and what your thoughts are.
That's such a good thing, Vanessa, to mention, because we get enamored with these new ideas and these pop ideas of what's in the zeitgeist, like authenticity. And
Right.
I'm a mindfulness teacher, and things come up a lot that become into the mainstream. And, mindfulness is on the cover of Newsweek and on the cover of Time. And what was thought of as once like fringe ideas, suddenly it's like everybody's talking about this.
Right.
So when that becomes part of the mainstream, we have a tendency to overuse it, to manipulate it, to exaggerate it, to overdo it.
Right.
And it starts to water down the meaning of it. The thing for me about that is that it's really incumbent upon each and every one of us to decide what is real for us. Because if you're really deluding yourself and you're not being real, then that's something you've got to deal with. Do you know?
Ultimately,
it's on you,
yeah,
right?
Totally.
So there is a tendency of like this oversharing and this explanation. And I think we have to watch for that, because we tend to, we're like sheep that way. We tend to be like, oh, let's just get on that bandwagon. Oh, authenticity is the new whatever. Let's get on that. But again, the work is on us.
Right.
So we have to constantly be redefining what that means to us. It's a lot of that inner work that we've got to be doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to kind of hover on that it is fundamentally your responsibility to do this stuff, because I think it gets lost, and for anybody who has done any amount of self-help work, whether it's even just reading books and kind of going down that rabbit hole, or getting coaching on it and all of this kind of stuff, at the end of the day, every single time, it requires you to fundamentally change something about yourself, whether that's, just your outlook and how you choose to react to the environment around you, which I think is probably a good first step. But it's like, it's never about somebody else. You know what I mean? None of these books say, well, you probably just shouldn't hang out with that person because they suck. Like, that's never the deal.
No. Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah. So let's talk about the new book, Live True. And I think I just want to start with you talking about the inspiration for it and how the book came to be.
Well, the inspiration for the book, just flat out from the beginning, was my sister Esther, who passed away right before I wrote it. And for anybody who's read my first book, Says Who, she was the inspiration for that book as well. She was this incredible spirit on the planet, and her path was amazing, quite difficult. She had mental illness, and she wasn't born that way, but it happened. And there's many theories and reasons as to why that may have happened. I look at her life and her life journey as that was her destiny to fulfill this time around. And she was here to learn what she needed to learn. And I call her truly my greatest teacher because I saw her live her life, and it was the most brave, transformational journey I've ever witnessed. And it was quite a difficult one. So when she passed away, I felt this tremendous guidance by her. And I still feel that way. I feel that she's like my North Star and that she is truly guiding me. And I just started writing this book. It really just poured out of me. And for anyone who's lost a loved one, you know, it's heartbreaking. But for me, what that did is it really tightened the lens for me. Like you're looking through a lens, and the way you see life in the world and what we're doing here is that this is it. You know, this is our life.
Right.
You know, this is really it. What are we waiting for? Do you know, what are we waiting for to make our life real? What are we waiting for to live the best life and be the best of what we can be? And the word authentic very much resonated for me because I write a lot about mindfulness. You know, mindfulness is a great reminder to be present and to awaken to the moment of which you are in. And when we're not being authentic, it helps us recognize that. So I felt very inspired to take mindfulness and authenticity and really highlight how important life is, and that it, you know, if this is not the time to awaken, what time are we waiting for that to happen?
Right.
If not now, when? You know, there's that great quote, if not now, when? If not me, who?
Right, right. Yeah, that all fits nicely. So just to unpack a little bit of that. So when you're saying mindfulness, when you're combining these two things, is it a sense that a mindfulness practice, whatever that might be for you, is kind of a gateway into understanding like how authentic you are in like with yourself, with others? Is that kind of the point?
Definitely. Mindfulness, which is an inherent quality that we all have, and it's being mindful, it's being present, it's being awake, it's being aware. And we have a very hard time doing that because we are, as I say, usually spending most time in two time frames that don't exist, the past, which is come and gone, and the future, which isn't here yet. So if you really want to make a concerted effort to practice mindfulness, which is saying, I want to show up for the moments of my life. I want to be here. I want to be present in each and every moment. Now, that's a tall order. I get that. That's difficult. But what it is a gateway. It's a gateway into committing to being present first and foremost. And you become so present and aware of who you are in the moment, whatever moment that is, that you can really sense when you're being inauthentic. So that might mean something like you're talking to somebody and you feel like you have to conceal something from them. You're presenting a persona or a role or an identity to somebody because you think they're going to love you. So that is the way in which you can combine them, is that first and foremost, it's saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I want to be present in my life. I want to show up in all the moments of my life. And I want to show up as the real me. I don't want to hide. I don't want to pretend. I don't want to fake it. I want to be real in each and every moment of my life. Now, that's not always easy to do, so I'm not going to pretend that this isn't work.
Sure.
Because it is work.
Yeah.
But boy, I'll tell you, when you start to really get on that journey of authenticity and present moment awareness, things just start to open up for you, and veils start to lift, and the illusions start to melt away. And I think that if you can get on that track, you're gonna live this life and see it for what it really is.
Yeah.
And create it for what it can be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, because this is our life story. I mean, when I say about, you know, why wait to live that life of authenticity? If you realize that you are, as I say in my first book, Says Who, you're the creator and master of your internal dialogue, which creates your reality. You know, not everybody's comfortable knowing that we have that much power.
Right.
Right.
It's not comfortable
No.
for many people. They're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Do you know?
rather it be able to blame somebody if things aren't going
Yeah.
well.
Or be the victim.
Or yeah, absolutely. It
You
gives
know?
us so many opportunities to not be responsible for our
Right.
thoughts and for ourselves in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to read this passage in the book because it really resonated with me. The time we waste is the time we pray to be given when the end of life is near. We ask for more time, realizing that the moments diverted from living in the present are gone and forever wasted. That's why it's so important to love all the moments of your life, even the ones that seem unlovable. They might be hard to love because they've hurt you, disappointed you, or even felt like they've abandoned you. Moments can break our hearts, especially the painful ones, and we can hate them and curse them and never want to see them again. But they can also bring us a baby, a liver transplant, a soulmate, or something as satisfying as a smile from a complete stranger. Sometimes the simplest moment is the richest, and it costs you absolutely nothing. It was free. I really love this because what you dive into in the book is really talking about the sense that we want every moment to serve us. We want everything to be a blissful experience and an awesome experience. And I just really love that you're inviting people to love all the moments, even the hard ones. So maybe you can just dive into that, what that means to you and what that looks like.
Thank you, Vanessa, for reading that passage, because there's a lot in that. And I remember when I wrote that, and I talk a lot about, loving the moments of our lives, not just the lovable ones or the pretty ones or the easy ones or the, painless ones. It's the ones, what I say is, that is the sweet spot. Those are the moments, the difficult, sometimes even hellish moments that we experience. If we can move through them, and where the sweet spot is on the other side of the pain. Mm-hmm. But you got to get through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know? Mm-hmm. And, kind of what we were talking about earlier, we're so used to this instant gratification. Mm-hmm. We're so used to like instant everything that we don't want to work that hard. But, when you realize that every moment is a meditation and you can really be present in it, there's something, it's like an alchemy. There's some kind of way in which you kind of free fall into a moment that feels very transcendental. Mm-hmm. And that even when it's really, really hard, that there's something that's happening. And I do feel it's very transcendental. Mm-hmm. And the more you're willing to be open to it, the more you're willing to be expansive and let life, it's like you said, it's like we don't need to just always sit back and go, hey, life, do me. Mm-hmm. I want you to do me and do me good,
right.
all the time.
Right.
It's just not like that, So if we can do our life in a way that means, okay, I get it. There's going to be some really tough moments and there's going to be some really difficult and painful times. It's going to break our heart. And it's all there. It's all good. It's all precious. It's all our life. And you read a passage like you don't want to wait till you're taking your last breath and go, why did I waste so many moments worrying about this, obsessing about that, fretting over this, being resentful at that? It's like so much precious moments wasted, and they're gold. Mm-hmm. Moments are gold.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, I do. And it reminded me what you said about your sister passing, how it tightened the lens or the focus of what was important or what was real in a sense. And I think, people do wait for a tragedy or a near-death experience or, even worse, an actual death experience. We wait for these things till we finally come into focus with ourselves and say, like, what's really important to me.
Right, exactly. And to be okay in those painful moments. We tend to rush the difficult moments along. We want to hurry them on. Like, come on, let me get past this. Let me get through it. It's not to say that we want to hang out in the pain. We don't. Right. But we also have to learn how to be present in it too. Mm-hmm. That's the only way we can transform it, and it's the only way we can transcend it, and it's the only way we can raise our awareness and our consciousness around all the moments of our life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's something that I think about, like one of the struggles, for lack of a better term, that I have with just life in general is like this tendency.
Just life, you mean?
Just
life.
regular life.
Life.
is a tendency to really ruminate on problems, or things that, and for me, it's very specific to things that I wish I had done differently, and a lot of times I think, what you're saying is like the times where it really comes up is something that I've noticed through meditation and just kind of like paying attention to when it comes up, is that they are typically things like the topic that I ruminate on are typically things that I tried to rush through because it sucked. I was super embarrassed about the way that I did something or whatever. And so I just wanted to move past it. Well, all right, never mind. Stop paying attention to that. Now we're moving forward and doing this thing. And it's those things that seem to come up in the rumination, So I think there's probably really something to what you're saying about if you can be present in it and just hash it out once, while you're in the moment and then move on free and clear, you're freeing up, for me anyway, potentially hours of just kind of BS rhetoric that just rolls around in my head.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like our heart expands. I mean, we really find out what we're made of in those difficult moments. And like even you said, rather than to complain about them and ruminate, there's nothing wrong with ruminating, but you don't want to kind of like be on the hamster wheel or chasing your tail where you're constantly like lamenting and wishing that things were different. But if you can really own it, if you can really own what's difficult or what the growth is for us in that moment or that period of time, and just be with it and feel it, like you feel like your heart is expanding, even in heartbreak. If you can really ride that wave, I always think of like a surfer, riding those waves and those waves, we can watch a wave behind the surfer and go, oh my God, like how are they going to even survive that? And that's our life. And then we look back and we think, how did I grow? How did I expand? How did I open my heart? How did I crack that egg and then have that rebirth? Do you know? Because I think some of these moments are the most amazing rebirthing moments of our lives.
Absolutely. And
powerful stuff.
It's interesting because we look at like physical activity, coming from a strength and conditioning background and having sort of that background for us. People recognize that in order to get stronger, they have to have a little pain. There's going to be something they have to endure and overcome. And on the other side of that, they're going to have a new resiliency and strength. And it's so easy and we're so clear about it with our physical bodies. But then when it comes to our emotions, we're like, no, stay away from the pain. Avoid that at all costs. When it's really the same exact kind of scenario.
It really is. I mean, it's amazing to me that we can accept more readily, putting ourselves through physical exhaustion or, things that are difficult for us. And then we get on the other side of it. And by the way, that's a great analogy because the high and you guys, that's your background. It's like when you move through the pain, the physical pain, what do you get? You get a real high.
Oh, yeah.
The adrenaline, the endorphins, the dopamine. I feel that's the same thing that you get with, going through the emotional difficulty.
Yes.
And yet people are so afraid that, I don't know, it's very individual as to why different people are afraid. Feeling vulnerable is scary to people. Feeling out of control is scary. And, we can control our body better in ways that we can put ourselves through hoops physically and feel a little bit more in control. But emotionally, we feel like, oh, I'm going to be out of control. And that's more frightening.
Yeah. It's definitely, the script is definitely flipped on that one because it's the reality is that if there was, if you look at your mind and your body as two separate things, just for what we're talking about here, the body is the one that can break and never come back. You know what I mean? Like the body is the one you can kill.
That's right.
But it's like your mind and your spirit and all of this stuff that we're hyper protective of is actually the most resilient piece that we have going, and we put so much effort into, I'm going to wear a helmet and I'm going to put on wrist guards and I'm going to do this, and that's probably smart, like you protect that human body.
That's right.
But the other side of that is that you've got this mind that you can push beyond anything that your body can do, and it'll just bounce back and keep on working. I mean, obviously there's psychotic breaks and stuff that can occur, but I think the analogy holds. It's like we're so protective of the physical body, we're so protective of our mind, the non-physical body, when in reality, it's probably the most resilient and the one that, we should be just charging with.
Such a good point, because you do notice that, especially if you're a physical person and you're exerting a lot of energy. I mean, I know sometimes when I'm working out and the monkey mind, that busy mind that wants to trip you up, it's like, oh, immediately that inner chatter starts to happen, and you're like, thank you very much. You're not
invited.
You're not invited. You're not running the show. You're not in control. So you're right. We get those reminders, and we are so quick to push through when we're working out, and our mind is telling us it's had enough. But with the emotional aspects of it, I think also we're not conditioned. It's not something that's taught to us early on. I think young boys are taught very early on to hide their emotions. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be vulnerable. I mean, guys got it tough in that department, and girls tend to, early on, it's okay. It's acknowledged that it's okay to be emotional if you're a female, but this goes for everybody. Opening up your heart is something that I think men and women need to embrace in each other and know that it's okay to do and not to fear that. Do you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one of the things you said is, we're talking about people being afraid. And one of the things I think is the reasons that they don't have any tools. Like they don't, with your physical body, you kind of know, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do a squat and that's my tool or that's my mode to work through this. I think a lot of people are afraid because they don't have the tool set, the arsenal of tools to help them navigate that space. So they just want to stay away from it. And what I love about the book is that you kind of step people through the process and give them tools. So maybe you can just talk about sort of the process that you're laying out in the book.
Right. I mean, really the intention of the book is to, welcome people into feeling comfortable with going deeper within themselves. I just want to be able to right off the top say to them, it's okay, kind of what we were just talking about. It's okay to go in deeper. And then not having tools, some people might go, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to feel out of control? Am I going to remember things from my past that are going to make me really feel sad and depressed? So the tools just really are the beginnings of that, is to be with your thoughts. Again, that goes back to my first book, Says Who. I say, own your thoughts, all of them, not just the pretty ones, and that means that, spend some time with yourself, check in with yourself. So there are things that we can do with that. And that is, in my new book, Live True, I talk about taking a spiritual pulse. It's like check in with self. We wake up in the morning, we're so quick to just jump out of bed and then get on with our day that we don't do the connecting. So I'm really encouraging people to just even start your morning so that you can connect to gratitude, that you can really just be thankful that you're another day alive, and that it means connecting to the breath and making sure that your thoughts are aligned with what you want to set out in your day to accomplish. There are so many steps along the way in that. Really connect with yourself. So take time, whether you're a meditator or not. That means that you just check in. If, as a meditation teacher, I work with a lot of people that they do meditate, they don't want to meditate. That's no excuse for checking in. So I say start with that. Start first thing in the morning. Don't be quick to just, get on that hamster wheel, got to go, got to be, got to do, all that stuff that we all do. So mindfulness is a wonderful tool. It's a great way because you can take mindfulness with you into everything that you do. So I'm a big advocator of learning how to practice mindful awareness. And this isn't rocket science. This isn't something that people can't do. You just have to be willing to do it. And like anything else, you guys have that background in the physical commitment to getting into shape. You got to want to do this.
Right.
We could talk all about this, but if you're not willing to show up and be present, and if you're interested in working with your thoughts, then mindfully working with your thoughts. So I really encourage a mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is not necessarily meditation, because meditation, a lot of people ask me, is that the same thing? You're in mindful awareness when you're in meditation because you're aware of the thoughts, and then you can redirect it to something in a mindfulness meditation by bringing it back to the breath. Mindfulness is the practice to present moment awareness. And, we could do a whole thing on that. But I really encourage people to, read about that in the book, read some books on mindfulness. I love John Kabat-Zinn's books, the basic learning of mindfulness, to learn what it means just to show up in the present moment and how to do that. He teaches something called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is a way to minimize stress through mindfulness. And it is a tool, as I said, it's an inherent quality. And if you're really interested in learning more about it, you can certainly learn about it in my book. I couple it with authenticity, or start to read books on mindfulness and begin your mindfulness practice. It's a great tool.
Yeah, it really is. We're in such a great era because I think people are more open than ever to getting coaching, whether it's through books or it's through podcasts or it's through actually working one-on-one with teachers. But we're in such a great time where we have so much access to all these great teachers that can really give us the skill set for this. And that's exactly what you're saying is, read about it, be a seeker of these tools.
And I'm a big advocate of that. It's like, if you really want to change your life, if you really want to put this into motion, then you take the steps to do that, to meet it. If you really want to see the changes, my first book says who really help people understand how they have the ability and the power to change their thoughts from negative and fear-based to positive, productive thoughts. So these are what I call healthy thinking habits. These are the ways in which you change your life effectively. You can't get into shape if you're not going to exercise.
Right.
And you can't really be present in your life unless you want to really understand what it means to practice mindfulness. And it's there for you. It's there for all of us if we want it.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about life gazing, because I love that term.
Yeah.
And maybe you can just first describe it for the listeners and then talk about its implications for mindfulness in this process.
Life gazing is really, one of my favorite things to do. And as I was sharing with you earlier, looking at the birds outside my window, it's really taking the moment, like I'm looking at your window right now and I'm seeing all these wonderful branches move along these gorgeous palm trees that are right outside this window. Now, people listening to this don't see it, but I think they can get a visual. That's life gazing. Life gazing is really taking the moment, again, being present in the moment, showing up in the moment. And that no matter what you're doing, because we always use the excuse of busyness as to not life gaze, that's not a good enough excuse, because I even talk about life gazing in Live True about I started to do it at a red light. I would be at a red light and I would sit there. And of course, our mind wanders a lot of the times when we have idle time. And really, if you think about it, that's when we go into the past and we go into the present. But we're not in the future because we're impatient. We're not in the present because we're impatient with it.
Right.
So great life gazing exercise to do is when you're stopped somewhere. And again, at a red light, I started to watch people that were crossing the street. And I was really, there's a great quote by Thoreau. It's not just what you look at, it's what you see. Do you know? And there's a lot more that we can see.
Right.
So life gazing is taking those moments. And again, this doesn't have to be just when you're on a yoga mat or when you're on a meditation pillow. I'm talking about meditation out in the world.
Right.
I'm talking about taking mindfulness out into all the moments of your life. And life gazing is a great way to do that. We know what it means to make an effort to watch a sunset or watch a sunrise. We sometimes make dates with ourselves to do those things, but you could life gaze 100 times in one day.
Right.
Do you know? And for people that are really stressed out and people that are, always using the busyness story, I can say, well, when was the last time you just looked out your window? When was the last time? You know what I mean? I'm talking to you guys and I'm checking out what's going on outside your window, and it's beautiful.
Right.
I can see that that's an incredibly gorgeous day today and there's a blue sky, and that's life gazing. Whether you stop and make an effort to do it or you just take a moment even when you're with people.
Yeah.
And when you do it, you're going to start bringing other people into present moment awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Oh, absolutely. Because now you start holding the space so differently that they're like, what's going on here? How can I be in this more with her?
Completely.
Yeah.
You know, that they start to really realize that we, again, rush through so many moments and they are really precious. It's like, you know, when we were outside walking up to your place and we saw the flowers outside, it got our attention.
Yeah. And
You
the
know, that's-
butterflies.
And the butterflies, exactly. That's life gazing. Those are such exquisite moments. Why do we want to rush through them?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, well, and a lot of the reasons I think, and what you were alluding to is it's the busyness trap, right? People feel like they need to be super productive, and in order to be super productive, they feel like they need to be always doing something and always busy. And it's been pretty clearly shown that that's not the case. You know, in fact, there's a couple of studies that were done on exactly this. They didn't call it life gazing, but it was, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but they said that you needed to spend time looking at things that are inherently interesting. So just like you're saying, birds fly by or trees moving or something, that we're just drawn to it. You know, it's not, you know, oh, I'm going to read something interesting. You're just looking at stuff and you're like, wow, that's interesting. You know, you just find that to be,
That's
you know,
right.
part of the deal. And in these studies, they found that people who spent 30 minutes walking in nature with no other agenda, just walking in nature, versus another group who spent 30 minutes preparing for this highly intellectual task that they were all going to be tested on, scored dramatically better than the people who spent the time preparing for it. And the thought is that, like, attention, our ability to focus on something, is a finite resource. And if you don't rest it, then you're not going to be as effective when it is time to work, you know?
Absolutely.
And so, like, all these people, and I've fallen into this category myself in the past, where it's like, oh no, I have to get these things done and these things done. I don't have time to just look out the window. It's like, you do, actually, and you better take it, or else your work's going to suffer, you know?
Right. And that's a thing, you know, Adam, that you're talking about. It's like we just, you know, we put these restrictions on ourselves, you know, and especially when we get into that loop of, I gotta get this done. I got to do this. And, you know, if you tell that to somebody, and we've all been there where we're so in the busyness of what we're doing, hey, you know, why don't you just stop and look out the window? They'll look at you like, what are you crazy?
Yeah.
Like,
I just told you how busy I am.
yeah. Why would you even say that to me? So this is our own self-regulating that we have to do. We have to remember to look up. And it makes me think of when we were children. Do you know, I used to love to roll down like big, hilly, grassy fields. And I remember rolling and rolling and rolling down. And then I would stop and like my heart would be beating. And I would love to look up at the clouds. Do you know, and just how many hours you could just spend looking at clouds. And that's really what they're trying to do with kids today. They're realizing that these kids, I mean, you look at kids at 3 years old, they're on smartphones and iPads. It's scary.
It's really scary.
You know, we didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
Do you know, we did take the time to look out the window or look up at the clouds moving across the sky. I find it interesting that the clouds across the sky become a sort of a direction in meditation. That when you when thoughts are going in and out of your mind, is to let them go and just be the observer or the witness of the mind, and to use the clouds moving in the sky as an analogy. Well, that's what we did as children. Now we're having to tell ourselves that in meditation.
Right.
Here's this new thing you've never done before.
Right,
And you have to learn how to
exactly.
do. Yeah.
Right. You know?
We're seeing this across the board in all ways, right? We see it with our food and with our movement and with our mindfulness, where it's like life is set up where we have to actually actively recreate what was natural to us once, right? You know, we have to recreate the natural foods we used to eat and get rid of all of the distractive foods and, you know, hyper palatable foods and all that stuff.
right.
We've got to do the same thing with our mind and our physicality. It's like we've got to really be the stewards of our own selves at this point more than ever. And I think that that's really why so many people are suffering, is that they don't really understand that you have to really be conscious about the way you're creating your reality on all levels now.
Absolutely. And that is so true, what you just touched upon, because really what I feel sometimes that we've all sort of gone along with this belief that we have to live the lie. You know, and that's where authenticity really comes into play for me, is that so much of what we believe is real is not. And so much of the unnatural ways in which we function in society is so not true. Like, why do we believe that it's real to hate somebody or to be prejudiced or, hate each other because we have different ways of doing things or different beliefs, or whether they're religious, philosophical, spiritual, whatever. It's like, what came up for me one day is I said, it's just exhausting to live the lie. It's like, and you talk about food, you look at these ingredients on, foods and you go, why?
Right.
Yeah.
Why do you have to fill foods with things that aren't real and unnatural? Where did we go along with this program? Do you know? And I think that's what we're waking up to, is that we've gone along with the lie or lies for so long, and we're coming onto it and we're saying, no, that doesn't work. And so why do we have to keep believing or pretending that what isn't real is the way we should be functioning? And which brings me back to just living authentically. I say it's a lot harder to be who you're not than who you are. After a while, it's exhausting for people that have to put on this mask and to have to really wear these veils of deception. You're being deceptive to yourself. And a lot of people basically go home and they crawl into bed and they feel this deep emptiness inside themselves and they don't even know why. Do you know? And it's sad.
Yeah.
We don't have to live like that.
It's really interesting. I know the first time you came, you were getting ready to go to Rythmia. And, a lot of times when we're talking to folks about plant medicine and they'll mention, well, I'm afraid to see something that's there. Maybe there's something buried in me that's going to be upsetting, or I don't want to see it. And I always say, whatever you see is not going to be as hard to see it as the effect it's having on you without knowing that it's there. And I feel like it's exactly the same thing you're saying, is that, it's more trauma. It's more difficult to live with these things that are inauthentic, or to live with these sicknesses inside of us, than just to turn and face it and say, okay, what do I do? What's the first step here?
Exactly. And the beauty of something like plant medicine is that it really does lift the veils, and it really does take you into the deeper understanding of what's real.
Right.
And I can understand the fear around that, because it's, for a lot of people, it's going into the unknown and they don't know what's on the other side of that.
Of course.
But that we are so willing to keep living the lie because it becomes familiar and it becomes routine and it becomes predictable. And yet, if we move through it and we get to the other side of it, that's where the bliss is. We don't have to just experience it. There is that exquisite bliss when you really let the doors of perception open up, as Aldous Huxley talked a lot about, through his experience with psychedelics. But I think we could live our lives like that a lot more than we are. And I think personally, my future prediction is that's going to be the way in which we're going to move through life. It's going to be pretty psychedelic.
I think so too. I love it.
It's going to be altered states of consciousness for sure. And we're just moving in there. We're just touching upon it right now. And fear is, you can have your fear. I don't tell people to deny their fear.
For sure, yeah.
But I think it's time to really entertain the possibility of, opening up those doors of perception and seeing life in a way that we have pretended that is normal, and it's not.
Amen.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the alternative, which is either to kind of keep on the struggle bus that we seem like we're on right now, it would be to just turn into it and make it worse. You know what I mean? Like more fear and more programming and more sort of autonomous living, where it's just one step after the other to fit in with everything, to just jump right in and be a cog in the wheel, and that seems terrible.
I know.
So why not just be a little bit afraid of what's going on?
And what are we really so afraid of?
Right.
Sometimes I ponder that. I like to contemplate a lot about the universe and the cosmos and, existentialism. I'm like, what are we doing? What is this? What's this all about? So I love to take a deep dive into that place. I think it's like the most exciting place to go into personally, but hey, not everybody wants to go there. I get it. But it's like, I think to myself sometimes, that is the existential question that comes up for me sometimes. It's like, hey, so what are we all so afraid of?
Right.
Like, what is it? Are we afraid that we're going to find out that we're going to die?
Right.
Yes, we are going to die. And are we trying to fill the space as much as we can because we're so afraid to go into nothingness?
Right.
Well, if you really do want to go towards the numinous, or you want to go towards divine presence and whatever that means for you, the reason why I think meditation really is so meaningful to so many people because they give themselves permission to drop into oneness. It's like, okay, I'm going to drop into oneness for like 45 minutes,
right?
And I'm going to get off my mat and I'm going to go back into my busyness. It's like, I don't think that's the way to do it. Although that's such an exquisite time to gift yourself to say, I'm going to do this for 45 minutes. But my feeling is then you go back to filling the space again.
Totally.
You go back to the busyness. And mind you, I'm not saying we shouldn't be busy. We are. I'm just as busy as you guys are.
Yeah.
We're busy people. But if we don't make the time, if we don't take the time out, if we don't pause, if we don't life gaze, then we are so at the effect of this busyness.
Absolutely. And busy is always a choice. It's always there to be an option, but you can choose those moments of unbusyness. And I think that that's just what people don't realize. They think busy is thrust upon them and there's no choice.
Right.
And it's like, no, I mean, you can always choose busy. Every single person on the planet can choose to be busy all the time, or they can choose to take 5 minutes. I mean, how hard is it to take 5 minutes in life gaze?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I say that, I'm like, come on, do you not have 5 minutes? But, you have to understand that a lot of people also, we have to ask ourselves some questions like, who am I? Who am I is not my job. It's not my identity. It's not my persona. It's not my material things, although those are all wonderful things. And we have every right to experience the joy of whatever gives us joy. But if, one of the reasons why we stay busy all the time is that we're afraid to find out who we are when we're not in our Lamborghini or we're not, whatever, not that there's anything wrong with Lamborghinis
Right.
for anyone that has one.
Right.
It's just that, we get so caught up in that we're over-identified with our busyness because our busyness tells us who we are. If I'm busy doing this, then that's who I am. And I think you have to take time because it's really challenging for all of us that if we don't stop and do things like life gaze or do things like stop the busyness, then we're going to believe that we have to be busy all the time. That's another belief that we put upon ourselves.
Right.
Who am I if I'm not busy?
I'm the busy one. That's who I am.
I'm the busy one all the time,
Yes.
and I don't know. I think it's just such a great way to live life is by striking the balance. Find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Find that delicate balance, that you can do your work, whatever that is for you, and derive meaning from your work. Because, we're doing the work that we're doing because we do want to share that with others. We wouldn't be inspired to do the work that we're all doing if we didn't want to really share that with other people and say, hey, you guys, you could really drop into loving your life more. But we also do need to integrate the time where we are doing those exquisite things like life gazing.
Yeah. It's the old saying, right? It's like something about stopping to smell the roses, and it's a funny. And I suspect this is probably a common experience for people to have, but like all of those old sayings and stuff just start to become more and more true. Kind of the older I get and the more things I do in life, like the more experiences I have.
With you more.
And you're like, damn it, it's really that simple,
Right.
And it just is. But
it's right. Some of those, I think I even have some of them in Live True. I'm like, that sounds like a Hallmark card. It's like, that sounds so cliche, but some of those cliches are actually pearls.
Yeah.
They're like pearls of wisdom. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. I remember hearing that as a kid. Do you know, things like that, or don't do, what is it? Don't put off today. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today or whatever, however it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in those sayings that we grew up hearing or our parents may have said to us.
Yeah.
And some of them I think are really wise sayings to subscribe to.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you do in the book that's really cool is you give these little meditations, kind of guided meditations that help people sort of embrace that topic that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I recently saw that you have a meditation album.
I do.
Are those the similar meditations?
They're actually all the meditations that are in the book.
Oh,
and what I did
great.
is I recorded them. And they're called Live True Meditations, and they're on all the music.
Spotify and
Yes,
all the,
you can literally go on to Live True Meditations, and they're lovely. They're to music. They're very soothing. I've been getting a lot of people reach out to me and saying, "Oh, I'm so glad you recorded the meditations," because whether you want to do the meditation or you want to take part of the meditation, and I put them at the end of each chapter because I feel that the meditations are really the essence of what the chapter is sharing with you. And also at the end of the meditation is something called Note to Self. It's like reducing it down to just what is the essence of this chapter, the takeaway. Do you know?
Yeah.
And I think the meditations are a wonderful way to integrate the essence of what the chapter is trying to tell you.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I love this.
Thank
I feel like I
you.
could talk about this for like 5 days in a row straight.
I'm with you.
I was
know.
basically like, I was sitting here thinking like, I wonder if I could just come over and like be around Ora more.
I know. I know. We see this is the kind of things that we end up going, God, this feels good, right?
It just feels
this
good.
This is what we're
yeah.
talking about. We're talking about like spending time where we're together and whether we're breaking bread together and I'm seeing you holding your beautiful dog and we're here in your space. And this is what we do. This is what we need to do, whether we're doing it ourselves or we're doing it with our partners or our loved ones, is to just to take the time and go, oh, isn't this just so wonderful to be able to do this?
Yes, it
Feels
is
good.
so wonderful. It really is. And Penelope likes to knock over my candle, which is her favorite thing to do.
Oh, no.
So, okay, the book is Live True. I want you to give our folks, kind of to wrap this up, what is one thing they can do today to start living more authentically, to start stepping into their more authentic and true self?
You know, a wonderful way to do that is just to close your eyes, you know, and connect to the core of you. What is the core? The essence. You know, I like to put my hands on my solar plexus. I know if you really connect to the chakras, you know, maybe that day you want to connect to your heart and or your throat. Maybe there's something authentic that you want to say today. Maybe by putting your hands on your heart, there's something that is in your heart that you want to feel that is an indication of your most true self. Whatever that is for you, take a moment. That's all I'm asking, is just to take one moment and be present in it. Do you know, be present with you, who you are, your most true essence, and only you know what that is, do you know? And to know that that's who you came into the world as. You know, your spirit is uniquely your own. There is no other you. And now's the time to celebrate you. Now is the time to accept you. Now is the time to love yourself. So really what I'm asking is to take the time, you're worth it, to connect to show up, to drop into what is your most true self, your authentic self, which is to say, live true, live you.
Well, what else can we say? That is it. That was beautiful. I got the chills.
Yeah.
And, you know, being in the room with you, just, that just came from such your truth and such an authentic part of you. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for having me again. Loved it.
So you have some book signings coming up. Please share with the audience where they can find you, where they can find all this good, yummy Ora stuff.
Thank you. I do. So I'm having a book signing just this Saturday, actually, right here in your neighborhood in Venice at Mystic Journey Bookstore on Abercrombie from 1 to 3.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have a book signing on April 3rd. No, actually, no, sooner than that. I'm having one March 20th at Cocoon, which is a yoga studio combined with Ellie Keith's Jewelry on Montana.
Ooh, beautiful.
So it's a great space, and they're joining together, and we're doing a book signing. It's the full moon.
Ooh, nice.
So we're doing a full moon meditation and all that good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. And then on April 13th, I'm doing one in Hermosa Beach at Selvage Boutique. A dear friend of mine has a fabulous store there. So we're going to do that. And then another one's coming up in Beverly Hills after that, which I don't have the date set, but probably at the end of April. And people can go on my website, oranadrich.com, and we post, all sorts of stuff that I'm doing and,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mothership.
The
That's right.
mothership,
Yep.
yes.
That's right.
You're the mothership, actually. I feel like.
Well, I think we're on the mothership together.
Maybe,
right?
yes.
We just took a wonderful journey together this afternoon.
Yeah, that was really lovely.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming over, Ora. And
Thank you, Vanessa and Adam.
Yeah, it's like we can always do this remotely, but like being in each other's space is just that's what's up.
Right? I know. I was hoping that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
That we were going to do it together in person.
And we did it.
Yes, we did.
Awesome. All right. Well, we love you and we appreciate you.
Love
And
you guys.
Thank you so much for your contribution to
all
us
right.
today and to our audience.
And thank you for holding the beautiful space.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Yes.
Bye. All right, folks, we hope you enjoyed that. We certainly did. It was such a sacred little space in here in our house today, sharing this conversation with Ora, and we hope that was felt in your ears, in your heart. And again, if you're thinking about coming to Rythmia with us, shoot us an email, info@bethewellness.com, or you can go to our brand new website, check out the experiences tab, and get on in there and sign up.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you on that journey with us.
Yeah, 100%. And then if you have any weirdness about it, right? If you've got any kind of questions or any part of you that's like, boy, this sounds really cool, but I just don't really know what to do, definitely email us and let's talk about it.
Yes.
Because this is, it's not for everyone.
Nope.
But sometimes just having a conversation with somebody about it to kind of put some of the things at ease might be just what it takes.
Yeah.
And so Vanessa specifically is available for that.
I am. And you can follow the link in the show notes to set up a call with me. And I'm happy to talk to you about any of this stuff and just see if it's a good fit or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's step one.
That's step one. All right, guys. We hope you have a beautiful week and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.